Fanfic Corner, presented by Jennifer. With you. Omega rested her eyes, inviting the heat of the sun to bathe her skin in its comforting warmth as she sat on one of the many stone walls surrounding Pabu, inhaling a deep, salty breath. She was still getting used to the island's air. She loved the smell of the ocean as its deep, umber blue waters crashed gently onto the shore of the lower residential areas. Much different than Camino's oceans, which were always raging, dark, and unpredictable. Here she could calmly admire the sloshing of the waters without worrying, let alone being able to bask in the sun while doing so. Omega took in the picture-perfect view one last time before sliding off her perch, gathering the large pile of sticks she had picked up prior to her short break, setting off to her home away from home. She could hear her brothers from half a kilometer away as they gathered on Shep's back patio. She saw Tech hanging extra strands of lights, similar to the ones in her room on the Marauder, while Wrecker and Crosshair moved the outdoor furniture in a layout that was much more spacious. As she approached, Hunter and Echo emerged out of the small house carrying trays of vegetable food, of vintage food, from assorted fruits to different species of fish that Wrecker and Shep had gone out earlier to catch. "Omega!" Lannon waved, setting down the handful of plates and cups on the table as she bounced over to the gate. "You're just in time. Auntie Fee was asking for you." Omega smiled, walking past her friends to Fee, who was standing beside what looked to be the stone bowl built into the ground. Lennon later explained to her what a fire pit was, though she still found it weird. "Here's the wood you asked for," Omega grunted, placing the armful of kindle beside one of the chairs surrounding the pit. "I hope it's enough." "Should be more than enough. Thanks for running the pickup." Fee ruffled Omega's long golden locks, earning a small giggle from the clone. No problem. Is there anything else I can do? Fee scanned the area. The table was set in an orderly fashion. Fairy lights covered the patio just in the nick of time as the sun was beginning to set. I think that's all. That covers it all. She placed her hands on her hips. Next up, enjoy this send-off. Omega tried to hide the look of despair on her face. It was hard to hear those words. Send-off. It wasn't new information, but she wasn't ready for Echo to leave again. It felt like he had only arrived yesterday, when in reality it had been nearly a month, which was already longer than he had intended. Yeah, can't wait, Omega replied with a half-smile, not daring to stay any longer in case Fee decided to question her. She found her seat at the large table as the others slowly began to join. Once everyone was seated, Shep stood up, raising a wooden cup. Omega tried to drown out his speech of gratitude towards Echo for the help of rebuilding Pabu after the sea surge. Every moment passing was one closer to Echo leaving for good. Or at least for a while. What's wrong with you? Omega shook her head, looking to her left, finding Crosshair staring down at her with a judgmental expression. What? She genuinely asked, hoping he couldn't see through her facade. You're glaring at your food as if it insulted you, he said in a low tone, raising his cup to his lips, taking a nice long sip. Omega blinked a couple of times. She hadn't realized. Oh, I'm just tired, she lied, hoping he would leave it as that. Crosshair hummed, I believe you. Omega rolled her eyes, stabbing her fork into the fish on her plate. As appetizing as the food looked, she couldn't bring herself to eat any of it. She felt sick to her stomach. Even after supper was over and the plates were cleared, she still couldn't find any joy in the night. She sat in the corner, tucked away, until the music started playing in the background. She watched as Record danced in an uncontrolled manner alongside Lennon, probably from one too many drinks on his part. Fee and Tex sat together in deep conversation around the crackling fire. The usual white light from Tech's datapad was nowhere to be found. Hunter, Echo, and Shep remained at the long table, swapping stories from past times, as Crosshair found a way out of any social event by sleeping comfortably sideways in a cushioned chair. Omega looked up at the starry night, the white dots ever so present, twinkling in the darkness. The day was over and tomorrow awaited, a tomorrow without her brother. Sniffing, Omega stood up as quietly as she could, unlocking the side gate, walking back down the steep staircase to the streets of a dimly lit Pabu. She found a secluded bench with a personal lantern, not far enough to lose the tune carried through the air from the patio, but far enough to be out of sight. Omega curled up on the metal surface, burying her face in her knees. She didn't understand why Echo wanted to leave them again. Wasn't he happy? The squad wouldn't feel complete without him there, together. She had to wait all those months just for him to return, and now he is ready to ditch them? Was there something she could do to make him stay? Was she the reason he wanted to leave? The conversation she overheard between him and Hunter still lingered in her head. Since joining the batch, she knew she'd changed their mission. But did she really drive her brother away? Was it all her fault that he chose to leave? Omega, what are you doing here? Omega jerked her head up. Echo stared worryingly at her. She quickly brushed away the wet stains on her cheeks, giving him a sad smile. "I just needed some air," she said, a lump in her throat. The lump in her throat was not helping her in the slightest. Echo definitely noticed. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the spot next to her. After receiving a small nod, he sat down, placing an arm on her as the chilly ocean breeze blew peacefully, making the lanterns gently sway. "I know you're upset that I'm leaving again, but you know it's not forever. I'll always come back." Omega could feel the warm tears start to well in her eyes once more. Of course she knew that, but "How long until I see you again?" she whispered, unsure if using her full voice would result in a breakdown. For a brief moment, no other words were exchanged. The sound of instruments filled the air instead, creating a less awkward silence. "To be honest, I'm not sure, Omega," Echo delivered, patting her arm in a soothing motion. "It could be months. It could be weeks." He didn't dare offer the possibility of a year. "But no matter how much time passes, I'll only be a calm call away." He nudged her shoulder slightly. "You can call whenever and wherever, and I'll try and pick up every time." Omega leaned into his chest. "It's not the same." She knew it was selfish of her to keep him from doing what he was called to do, but her heart cried for his presence. She needed him more than he realized. Life without him before was empty. After he left, everything fell apart. Her brothers argued more often, and the ship was quieter in an eerie kind of way. At times, she found herself calling out to him, but was greeted with silence as a reminder that he wasn't there. Echo planted a tender kiss on her head of messy curls. "I know, kid," he murmured. "I don't want to say goodbye tomorrow," she admitted, tearing herself away from him. "It's not goodbye, Omega." Echo paused, lifting her chin up with 2 fingers, making sure she was looking him in the eyes. "It's see you later." Omega looked at him for a moment before launching herself into his chest once more. "I'll miss you, Echo." She wrapped her arms around his waist, trying to absorb their last moments for the time being. "That makes 2 of us, kid." Echo gently held her close. "Keep an eye on the others. Keep the others out of trouble, eh? Especially Wrecker." Omega let out a short laugh, releasing him from her embrace. "Yes, sir." Echo stood up, putting on a fake stern face. "I mean it. I swear, if you don't keep an eye on him, he's worse than a baby rancor." "He sure dances like one," Omega chuckled. Speaking of, the upbeat rhythm had started to slow. Omega closed her eyes, letting the sweet melody calm her. "I've never heard this type of music before," she commented. Really, she had never heard any type of music that wasn't in a chanting set, a cantina setting. An idea suddenly dawned on the Ark. She's sure he wasn't the best, but he wanted to give Omega a memory to last until he returned. "Come on, I'll show you how to dance." He held his flesh hand out to her, watching a wide grin spread across her face as she put her little hand in his. "Now what?" She glanced up at him, her face glowing like a soft, warm lantern light. "Follow my lead."